Good morning. I hope everybody out there is doing well and making their way through the hustle and bustle of the season. Today is the 8th and last day of Hanukkah, also known as the Festival of Lights. As you may know, Hanukkah is an 8-day observance that remembers the Jewish people's struggle for religious freedom. According to Jewish belief, it marks the day on which the great miracle of oil occurred. It is a particularly special day because it encapsulates all of Hanukkah. In Christianity, today is the second Sunday of Advent. According to tradition, Advent is a season of waiting and a time to prepare our hearts to receive the Christ child. The second candle in the Advent wreath is called the Bethlehem candle, or the candle of peace. Lighting the candle marks the beginning of a week of reflection on what the future will bring. Advent is also referred to as a period of faithful waiting, not only for the miraculous birth of Jesus, but also for the peace on earth promised to us in the prophecies found in the scriptures. Yet as we look around us today, we see anything but peace. We have a new strain of COVID threatening us, as well as the threat of disastrous climate changes. Civil unrest continues, along with shootings and rising crime rates. War, poverty, homelessness, suicides, dysfunctional politics, these are just a few of the chaotic conditions we are experiencing today. The world, it seems, is sinking into a chaotic abyss. Chaos. Is it a gift from the divine or the work of the devil? The definition of chaos refers to a lack of order or lack of intentional design, and is often perceived as bringing shadows and darkness to the world. In Greek mythology, chaos was the first created being, the first of the primordial gods to emerge at the dawn of creation. Personified as female, chaos was a shadowy realm of mass and energy from which much of what is powerful in the world and negative and dark would appear in later myths and stories. The folks at Merriam-Webster tell us that the word chaos derives from a Greek word meaning chasm or void. In ancient Greece, chaos was originally thought of as the abyss or emptiness that existed before things came into being. Later, the word chaos was used to refer to a specific abyss, the abyss of Tartarus, the underworld. Tartarus was a dungeon of torment and suffering in Greek mythology, described by the Greek poet Hesiod as dismal, dank, and a place of decay. Today, again according to Merriam-Webster, the most common uses of chaos denote either confused disorganization or a state of utter confusion. It often implies an undertone of darkness, negativity, and sometimes even evil, especially in literature. Today's use of the term chaos by the media often suggests that something is seriously out of kilter and perhaps even on the verge of collapse. Novelist Gore Vidal described it perfectly when he said, "At any given moment, public opinion is a chaos of superstition, misinformation, and prejudice." Yet, according to Professor John Briggs and physicist F. David Peat, chaos is more than the messiness of mere chance or utter dark confusion. In their book, 7 Life Lessons of Chaos, which is a holistic exploration of chaos physics, they say that nature uses chaos in remarkable ways to create new entities, shape events, and hold the universe together. They claim that chaos is subtle and more than the common idea of a jumbled mass of confusion. In their words, the scientific term chaos refers to an underlying interconnectedness that exists in apparently random events. Chaos science focuses on hidden patterns, nuance, the sensitivity of things, and the rules for how the unpredictable leads to the new. It is an attempt to understand the movements that create thunderstorms, raging rivers, hurricanes, and complex patterns of all sorts, from river deltas to the nerves and blood vessels in our own bodies. Chaos is both death and birth, destruction and creation. Weather patterns are a perfect example of chaos theory. We can usually predict weather patterns pretty well when they are coming in the next few days. But as days pass, more factors influence the weather, and it becomes practically impossible to predict what will happen. Another example is a pinball machine. The ball's movements are precisely governed by gravitational laws, but the final outcome is unpredictable. As an example of how chaos is all around us, imagine yourself sitting by a river. As you sit there, you begin to notice that the water is simultaneously steady and predictable in its progression as it follows its natural course, yet ever-changing as the current generates complex shapes and designs in the water as it flows along. Sometimes the water moves slowly, gradually eroding its banks. Sometimes the river is a raging torrent, causing untold destruction. But as we think more about this stream, we can see that it is inseparable from the other ecosystems to which it is connected. Myriad animals and plants drink from its waters. The twigs, leaves, and seeds that litter the surface are carried to new locations to feed the soil. The water itself is used to nourish our crops as well as our bodies. The river is an ecosystem interconnected with both the life of the earth and her inhabitants. Similarly, each of us, and as an individual, is interconnected to the systems of nature, society, and thought that surround and flow through us. We live within movements constantly affecting each other and creating unpredictable chaos at many levels, like the stock market and ordinary street traffic. Yet within this same chaos, we find the order and patterns we need to navigate and function in our daily lives. Today, chaos is evolving from a scientific theory into a cultural phenomenon that allows us to question some of our most cherished assumptions and encourages us to ask new questions about reality and where we are going, questions that acknowledge that we are not alone. Chaos teaches us that we do not live in some abstract perfection, but in a pulsing, vibrant, ever-changing world. Chaotic times can push us into radical new ways of thinking and experiencing reality. It is as much about what we can't know as it is about what we think we know. It's about letting go, discovering new paths, and celebrating the magic and mystery of the universe. The inevitability and essential nature of chaos has been recognized since ancient times. Aristotle understood chaos as something that exists independently of things and without which nothing can exist. Roman sage and poet Ovid believed that change is the only constant in our world, the one thing of which we can be certain. And the great Chinese military strategist and philosopher Sun Tzu wrote, "In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity." All these great philosophers knew that if you have no chaos in your life, you are not growing, because growth requires change. Therefore, growth needs chaos. To understand how chaos changes us and leads to new growth, just think about how the ongoing pandemic is challenging the way we go about everyday living, both individually and as a society. How it has emphasized and led to new dialogue about human vulnerability, our capacity to think and act as a global community, and how we must prepare for the future together. for our continued survival. We cannot deny that chaos has invaded our lives and that the symptoms of cultural disorder affect us all. We are experiencing a transition from orderly to chaotic times and can be seen within the uncertainty and fear many people feel in their lives. Humans love order and balance, and because we are primarily orderly beings, we work towards minimizing chaotic periods as much as possible. Yet, although most people instinctively know how to behave in times of social order and are guided by social rules, when experiencing chaotic times and problems in a culture with what Briggs and Peake call a mechanical perspective, that is, a culture based on scientific dualism and separatism, people will desperately grab for any social order, including negative order, authoritarianism, anyone powerful enough to demand attention, and sometimes even violence. Briggs and Peake tell us that our traditional mindset has focused on social, political, and ecological problems as lying outside ourselves. As a result, we try to overcome problems by conquest or negotiation, which has the effect of reinforcing our perception of inherent separation. From deep within this mindset springs the violence that today dominates much of our consciousness. A mechanical perspective that sees the world and ourselves as no more than a collection of externally related parts blocks the clarity of our vision. The seeds of a dualistic, objectified way of seeing the world and its problems, science versus religion, logic versus intuition, mechanism versus nature, these were planted in the late Middle Ages and gained momentum in the 15th century during the Renaissance. Before the Renaissance, consciousness referred to what people knew together in community as an organic whole. But since that time, the concept of consciousness as an individual characteristic and the belief that humans are fundamentally separate individuals, that became the norm. Man was the measure of all things and the predestined overseer of the natural world. Nature became objectified and externalized, subject to scientific investigation, experiment, and management. Spirituality became the purview of the church, overwhelmed by doctrine and hierarchy. This mechanistic paradigm continues today, but fortunately, it's being challenged with a new worldview, chaos theory. Briggs and Peake call this new paradigm chaotic wholeness, a world of holistic, self-organized, chaotic systems within systems. They believe that within the cosmos, chaos and wholeness are entwined. They say that since the time of the Renaissance, we have focused on our existence as isolated individuals, yet underneath our feelings of isolation and our loneliness as separate individuals vibrates a sense of belonging and interconnection to the whole world. Their concept of chaotic wholeness recognizes the intrinsic value of both the natural and spiritual worlds, as well as the mechanistic benefits of science and industry. Their belief that an encounter with the terrible unknown of chaos can bring with it the apparently paradoxical feeling of an intimate, transcending faith or trust in a nurturing cosmos. Taking that thought even further, Rabbi Rav Berg, a noted Kabbalah scholar, I don't know how to pronounce that. Rabbi Berg teaches us that in the search for a world without violence and chaos, effecting change requires a complete overhaul of the way we perceive things. It is our spirit within us, our consciousness, that determines the visible and observable world that we experience. Experiencing solidarity with the whole universe is about freeing ourselves from the chronic habit of thinking that we're just disconnected fragments. It's about moving from an emphasis on the isolated self, from the consciousness of what we only know individually, to the consciousness of what we also know together, from individual competition to collaboration, from obsessive focus on control and prediction to a sensitivity toward emergence and change through which the whole is expressed. Chaos inherently is neither good nor bad. Chaos stimulates its intuition, music, art, inventions, creativity of all kinds. But too much chaos and we descend into disorder, confusion, the shadows and darkness of the void. Chaos helps us better appreciate order. In fact, chaos and order go hand in hand. Without chaos, there is no order. Similarly, without order, there is no chaos. Both systems depend on our perspective and how we use them. Order can either be good or bad. Order is logic, science, patterns, laws, and rules. It is easy to make things orderly. However, with too much order, everything will work properly, but initiative will wither. Too much order leads to stagnation and death of the spirit. But if you allow chaos to take over, order will collapse.